Stop scrolling. Stop hiding behind excuses. Stop pretending everything must be perfect. What if I told you that the cracks, the failures, and the moments you thought made you weak are actually your greatest source of strength? For hundreds of years, the Japanese art of kintsugi has transformed broken pottery into masterpieces, celebrating flaws instead of hiding them. And this isn't just about objects, it's about your mind, your life, your potential. Every scar, every mistake, every failure you carry can become the foundation for unstoppable power. And today, you'll learn how to apply this ancient wisdom to your own life, turning weakness into resilience, doubt into confidence, and brokenness into mastery. If you're ready to stop fearing imperfection and start using it as your secret weapon, watch carefully because your transformation begins now. Imagine a simple ceramic bowl shattered into pieces. Most would see it as worthless, something to discard, but a master of kintsugi sees potential. Carefully, the pieces are gathered, edges smoothed, and gold lacquer is applied to the cracks. The bowl is no longer just whole, it is beautiful, unique, and stronger than before. This is the secret life teaches us. Our flaws are not weaknesses. They are the golden seams that can hold our potential together and make it shine. Every failure, every disappointment, every scar carries wisdom, strength, and resilience if you learn to honor it instead of hiding it. Over the next story, you will see how embracing imperfection transforms your life, teaching you patience, focus, and unstoppable confidence. This isn't motivational theory. This is practice, ancient wisdom, and a method that turns brokenness into power that no one can take away. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so I can keep bringing you great content. The morning sun spilled golden light across a quiet Japanese workshop. Shards of broken pottery lay scattered across the tatami mats, each piece dull and fractured. A young apprentice knelt among them, eyes downcast. He had always feared imperfection, believing that failure was a mark of weakness. Yet today his master had asked him to face those broken pieces, to understand their hidden power. Why do you fear what is broken? The master asked quietly, voice calm but firm. A crack does not ruin the piece. It gives it character. It teaches it strength. And so it is with life. The apprentice frowned. How could broken fragments be powerful? How could what was shattered become something more than whole? The master took a simple bowl shattered by accident and began to gather its pieces. Each shard was inspected, edges smoothed with careful hands. Then with golden lacquer, he began to fill the cracks, tracing each fracture with shimmering light. Slowly, a transformation took place. The bowl, once broken, became more beautiful than it had ever been. The cracks glowed like rivers of gold, turning weakness into art. This, the master said, holding the bowl for the apprentice to see, is kintsugi. It teaches us that imperfection is not a flaw. It is strength waiting to be recognized. The apprentice stared. He realized that his own failures, his own mistakes, the times he had stumbled or been hurt, were like these shards. Each one carried a lesson, a shape, a history. They could be transformed into something remarkable. For hours the apprentice worked. He carefully reconstructed broken bowls, each time applying the gold lacquer to the cracks. With every stroke, he felt a subtle shift inside. The fear of failure began to fade. The desire to hide weakness diminished. He understood that to embrace imperfection was to reclaim power. By midday, the workshop was filled with golden seams, shining in the sunlight. The apprentice held a small bowl, once shattered, now radiant. The lesson was clear. Every crack told a story. Every flaw could become a source of strength. And every moment of brokenness could be turned into mastery, if approached with care, awareness, and deliberate action. The master nodded, silently approving. But do not seek to hide your failures. Do not fear the cracks in your life. They are your opportunity to shine, to become more than you were before. The apprentice looked around at the many repaired bowls, each unique, each stronger because of its fractures. He realized that life would always challenge him, always present moments of brokenness. But now he carried a truth that could not be taken away. Imperfection was not his enemy. It was his greatest ally. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the tatami mats, the apprentice smiled. The fear of failure had begun to dissolve. Each crack, each flaw, each imperfection in his own life could now become a path to strength, a golden seam that held him together and made him unstoppable. The next morning, the workshop smelled of incense and wet clay. The apprentice arrived, still holding the small golden-seamed bowl from yesterday. He felt a quiet pride, but the shadow of doubt lingered in his mind. Could he truly embrace imperfection in his own life, not just in pottery? The master approached, carrying a set of delicate porcelain teacups. "Today," he said, "you will break something yourself, and then you will repair it." The apprentice hesitated. The idea of deliberately breaking something he had worked hard to perfect felt wrong, but he remembered the golden seams, the lesson of Kintsugi. Taking a deep breath, he dropped one of the cups onto the tatami floor. The crash echoed, shards scattering like 1,000 tiny stars. A pang of fear struck him. His hands shook. "I've ruined it. I can't fix this." The master placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "Do not fear the crack. Do not fear the failure. It is not the breaking that matters, but what you do with the pieces afterwards." The apprentice began picking up the fragments, one by one. His hands were clumsy at first, trembling with hesitation. But with each shard he held, he remembered the lesson: observe, accept, transform. Slowly, he applied the golden lacquer, tracing the cracks with care, patience, and deliberate attention. Hours passed. The broken cup was no longer merely repaired. It had become something extraordinary, stronger, unique, and beautiful in a way the original could never have been. Every crack shone, a testament to resilience, a story made tangible. The apprentice looked up at the master. It's more beautiful than before," he whispered. The master smiled. "That is the essence of imperfection. Life will break you. People will disappoint you. Circumstances will fail you. But if you learn to honor the cracks, the failures, the mistakes, the flaws, you become unshakable. Strength lies not in hiding weakness, but in transforming it." Later, alone in the workshop, the apprentice reflected. He thought of the times he had avoided challenges, feared judgment, or denied his own mistakes. Each memory felt like a shard he had been holding on to. And now he realized that every flaw carried wisdom, every failure a path to growth, every imperfection a golden seam waiting to be revealed. By evening, the workshop was filled with repaired bowls and cups, each shimmering with gold. But the apprentice understood that the true lesson was not in the pottery. It was within himself. Every crack, every flaw in his own life could be transformed into power if he approached it with presence, patience, and deliberate action. The day ended quietly. As sunlight faded, he held the golden cup close and smiled, feeling a strength he had never known before. He was beginning to understand the secret. Imperfection was not something to fear, but the source of unstoppable power. The morning mist hung low over the workshop, soft and heavy as the apprentice arrived, carrying yesterday's golden. He felt a quiet pride, but the world outside was harsh, full of judgment and comparison. A neighboring craftsman, renowned for perfect porcelain, came by, sneering at the apprentice's gold-seamed pieces. "Why do you display broken things?" the craftsman mocked. "They are flawed. No one will respect them." The apprentice's heart sank. Doubt crept in like a shadow. Maybe he's right. Maybe I should have kept them hidden. The master placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Do you see beauty in the cracks, or do you let someone else decide?" The apprentice remembered the lesson of Kintsugi. These fractures, these imperfections, were not failures. They were evidence of resilience, of survival, of transformation. He realized the craftsman's words were merely opinions, not truth. Strength and beauty existed in his pieces because he had embraced the cracks, rather than denying them. To prove it, he picked up a shattered teapot. Carefully, he examined every fracture, tracing the broken edges with his fingers. He began the repair, applying the golden lacquer with deliberate attention. With each stroke he visualized not just the pottery, but his own life, the mistakes, the fears, the moments he had stumbled or been judged. Time passed. The apprentice's focus never wavered. Sweat dotted his brow, but his hands were steady. Slowly, the broken teapot transformed into a piece of art, the golden seams gleaming like rivers of light. Its beauty was undeniable, not because it was flawless, but because it carried the story of its survival. The neighboring craftsman watched silently, then nodded subtly. The apprentice felt a quiet surge of confidence. He understood something profound. Imperfection does not diminish value. It amplifies it. Every flaw was a story, every crack a lesson, every broken piece a source of power. Later, alone in the courtyard, he reflected on his own failures. Times he had been embarrassed, ashamed, or doubted himself. Each was a shard waiting to be honored, not hidden. The golden lacquer was not just on pottery, It was a symbol of how he could transform his own brokenness into strength. By evening, the apprentice had repaired several pieces, each one unique, radiant, and alive with its history. He held them carefully, realizing that the journey was only beginning. Life would continue to challenge him. People would judge. Mistakes would happen. But embracing imperfection gave him a power no one could take away. He smiled quietly, feeling a calm confidence. Each flaw in his life, each crack in his heart, each failure he had endured was now a golden seam that made him unstoppable. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the quiet workshop, warming the tatami mats. The apprentice stood in the center, surrounded by bowls, cups, and teapots that glimmered with golden seam. He felt proud, but today the master had something more challenging for him, the ultimate test of embracing imperfection under pressure. Today, the master said, you will craft a piece entirely from shattered fragments collected over the years. It will be your most complex work yet. Do not rush. Do not fear failure. Let the cracks guide you. The apprentice's hands trembled. Hundreds of pieces lay before him, jagged edges and irregular shapes. The task seemed impossible. Each fragment reminded him of past mistakes, failures he had tried to hide. For a moment, doubt flooded his mind. I am not skilled enough. It will never hold together. But then he remembered the golden seams, the Kintsugi wisdom that had already transformed him. He took a deep breath, anchoring his mind in the present, focusing on one fragment at a time. He began slowly fitting pieces together like a puzzle, observing how each shard connected. Some seemed incompatible, awkward, but instead of forcing them, he adjusted, realigned, letting the flaws dictate the path. Each crack became a guide, a rhythm, a flow for the creation. Hours passed. Sweat dripped down his face, and muscles ached, but he did not falter. Every crack he gilded, every imperfection he honored, became part of the final piece. He realized that the more fractured the fragments, the more unique, intricate, and powerful the result would be. As the afternoon deepened into evening, the apprentice finally stepped back. Before him stood a teapot, entirely constructed from broken pieces. Its golden seams shimmered like veins of light, and its form, though irregular, radiated strength, resilience, and beauty. The master approached quietly, inspecting the work. You see now? He asked softly. The more broken it is, the more potential it carries. Each flaw, each fracture, adds character. Perfection is not the goal. Strength lies in embracing imperfection and transforming it into art, into power. The apprentice ran his fingers along the golden cracks, feeling their smooth texture, marveling at how something once broken could be more valuable than anything whole. He realized that this was not just a lesson in pottery, it was a lesson in life. Every personal failure, every mistake, every moment of weakness could be transformed into a golden seam of strength and resilience. For the first time, he felt an inner calm he had never known. Imperfection was no longer something to fear or hide. It was the path to mastery. Each crack in his life, each scar, each flaw was now a source of unstoppable power. As the sun finally set, casting long golden beams across the workshop, the apprentice smiled. He had faced the most complex challenge yet, and emerged with not just a repaired teapot, but with a mind anchored in presence, fully aware and unshakably strong. The following morning, the apprentice walked through the village with his golden-seamed teapot in hand. He felt calm, grounded, but life was about to test him in a new way. Word had spread of his repaired pieces, and villagers began whispering, some curious, some skeptical, others mocking. "Move or show broken things," a merchant sneered. "Who would want a flawed cup when perfect ones exist?" The apprentice paused. His first instinct was to shrink, to hide, to feel ashamed. For a moment, the old fear of imperfection crept in, whispering, maybe they're right, maybe I'm not enough. But then he remembered the golden seams, the lessons of Kintsugi, and the countless hours spent honoring every crack. He took a deep breath and held the teapot firmly. This was not just pottery. It was a reflection of his life, his resilience. He began demonstrating to the villagers. One by one, he showed them the repaired pieces, explaining how each crack was filled with gold, how the flaws made the objects unique and stronger. He explained how failure, like these broken shards, could be transformed into strength if approached with awareness, patience, and deliberate action. Eyes widened, murmurs filled the air. Some villagers smiled in understanding, others shook their heads in disbelief, but the apprentice did not waver. He realized that true mastery is not in seeking approval, but in honoring your own growth and transformation. Later, alone near a quiet stream, he reflected on his life. Every moment he had stumbled, every mistake he had feared, every judgment he had internalized, all of it was like a fragment in his hands, and now he saw clearly that these imperfections were not weaknesses, but golden seams connecting him to strength, wisdom, and confidence. He picked up a fallen leaf from the water and observed it closely. Its edges were torn, yet it floated gracefully. Like the leaf, he understood that beauty and power were not in flawlessness, but in embracing imperfection and letting it guide your journey. By evening, the apprentice felt an inner clarity. Life would continue to challenge him. People would judge, mistakes would happen, yet now he had learned the secret. Imperfection was not something to fear. It was the very source of his power. As he returned to the workshop, he held the golden-seamed teapot with pride, understanding that every crack, every flaw, every failure in his own life was a path to mastery, resilience, and unstoppable strength. For the first time, he smiled without hesitation. He had learned that being broken was not a weakness. It was the greatest source of power one could ever possess. The morning sun spilled warm light across the workshop, illuminating golden seams on every repaired piece. The apprentice stood quietly, holding a bowl that had once been shattered into countless fragments. He looked around at the workshop, the shards, the teacups, the teapots, all repaired with care, all shining with gold. Each crack told a story, each flaw held a lesson, each imperfection radiated strength. He remembered the first day he had feared failure, the trembling hands as he picked up the broken pieces. He remembered the mockery of the villagers, the self-doubt, the moments when he had thought himself weak. And now he realized the truth. Imperfection was not a flaw, it was the source of power. The master approached silently. "You have learned what many never understand," he said. "A life will always break you. People, circumstances, your own mistakes. But the cracks are not the end, they are the path. They are the golden seams that hold your strength together." The apprentice nodded. He understood fully now. Every moment of brokenness he had endured, every fear, every error, every heartbreak, each was a shard waiting to be honored, transformed, and gilded with experience and awareness. He moved through the workshop, touching the golden seams, feeling the weight of history and care. Each repaired piece reflected not just skill, but resilience, patience, and presence. Just as Kintsugi transformed broken pottery into art, so too had his life transformed. His failures were no longer chains. They were wings. Later, he stepped outside into the courtyard. The world was bright and full of movement, challenges, and distractions. People hurried past, some judging, some indifferent. But he walked calmly, fully anchored in the present moment, carrying the wisdom of every fracture and every golden seam. He realized that the power he now held was not in perfection, but in acceptance, deliberate action, and transformation. Laziness, fear, and self-doubt had all been shards in his life, yet by honoring them, he had turned them into sources of unstoppable strength. As the sun dipped low behind the mountains, casting a golden glow over the village, the apprentice smiled. He had become more than whole. He had become unshakable, radiant, and unstoppable. Every crack, every failure, every imperfection had been transformed into a golden seam of power that no one could take away. The lesson was clear. Life would always break him, challenge him, test him. But the cracks were not enemies, they were teachers. Imperfection was the secret to resilience. Flaws were the paths to mastery, and broken pieces were the source of unstoppable power. The apprentice stood tall, holding the golden-seamed bowl in his hands, and for the first time he felt complete, not in spite of his flaws, but because of them. True power comes from embracing your imperfections and transforming every flaw into strength.